They tossed it aside like it was nothing. A single penny. Worthless, they thought. Until one quiet night, in a dusty basement of a retired war veteran's home in Colorado, it resurfaced, and everything changed. Why would a 1962 Lincoln penny with a tiny D mint mark cause grown men to scramble across auction floors, wallets to fly open, and collectors to beg for just one glance? You're about to find out why this forgotten coin is rewriting history, and why, if you own one, you may never need to work again. But first, a question. What if the most valuable thing you've ever owned was hiding in plain sight, in your junk drawer, your old coin jar, or deep inside your grandfather's forgotten cigar box? Would you recognize it? Or would you let it slip away forever? That's the trap most people fall into. Now listen closely, because this is where it gets strange. In 1962, over 1.7 billion Lincoln pennies were minted. Most of them were born in Philadelphia and Denver. You'd think a coin that common would be worthless, right? That's what they want you to believe. But not all 1962 D pennies are created equal. There's one particular error, almost invisible to the naked eye, that changed everything. It started with a man named Harold Whitman, a retired machinist from Wichita, Kansas. In 2013, Harold found a worn old penny tucked behind a loose panel in his late father's toolbox. At first glance, it looked ordinary. A bit scratched. Dirty. But Harold noticed something unusual. The D mint mark was tilted ever so slightly, and beneath Lincoln's chin, there was a strange doubling that he took it to a coin shop. They laughed. Said it was worth a cent, maybe two. But Harold had a feeling. He sent it in for grading. 3 weeks later, the phone rang. His hands were trembling. "Sir," the voice said, this is not a regular strike. This is a rare double die obverse with a misplaced mint mark. We've only seen 3 of these. Ever. One of those 3 sold last year. At auction. Under heavy security. For more than a luxury home in Miami. And here's the twist. The 1962 D Lincoln penny wasn't meant to be special. But in a rush to meet demand, Denver's minting presses began producing coins with a misaligned die, creating doubling on Lincoln's jaw, neck, and sometimes even in the word liberty. But the real jackpot? The D mint mark, punched by hand at the time, landed slightly off-center on a few dozen coins. That error, that minuscule flaw, made all the difference. Now think about this. How many of those flawed coins were lost, spent, or melted down? How many are hiding right now in coin albums across the country, unrecognized, unloved, and worth a fortune? This isn't just about a penny. This is about possibility. People talk about crypto, stocks, lotteries. But what if the real goldmine is in your kitchen drawer? What if freedom, true financial freedom, is one coin away? Let me shake you awake with something most collectors don't want you to hear. The numismatic market is exploding. Coin prices are doubling overnight. And rare finds like this? They're vanishing. Fast. Here's another bombshell. Some 1962 D pennies with heavy die clash marks, where the obverse and reverse dies hit without a planchet between them, show ghost-like impressions of the Lincoln Memorial bleeding through the front of the coin. Those clash varieties. Even more valuable. Almost mystical in how rare they are. Now, let's reset that. You're probably asking, how do I know if my 1962 D penny is the one? Here's exactly what to look for. Start with the date, 1962. Look closely at the 2. If there's any doubling, even the tiniest shadow behind it, you might be onto something. Now examine the D mint mark. Is it perfectly aligned? Or does it look slightly off-center, tilted, or punched unusually deep? Under strong light or a magnifying glass, check Lincoln's jawline and neck. Any doubling? Any signs of shadow or split serif? That's a major red flag, in the best possible way. That if you spot anything unusual, do not clean the coin. Don't polish it. Don't even touch the front with your fingers. Place it in a soft cloth, then in a hard case, and send it to a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. And here's the biggest mistake people make: they sell too early. A local buyer might offer you $50, maybe $200. But the true collectors, the whales, they're paying hundreds of thousands. Quietly. Privately. Desperately, because coins like this don't just belong in pockets, they belong in history books. So I ask you, are you holding history and don't even know it, because someone out there is? Right now. Don't let this moment pass you by. Don't let your story be the one that ends with, I had it, but I spent it on a soda. Dig through your change. Look through every jar, drawer, and album. Tell your parents. Ask your grandparents. Search like your life depends on it, because for some, it has already changed theirs. And finally, the one line you've been waiting for, this exact 1962 D Lincoln penny, in high-grade condition with those ultra-rare minting errors, recently sold for $804,000. What if I told you there's a coin so ordinary, you've probably seen it 100 times? Dropped in change. Forgotten in a drawer. Left in a penny jar. But today, that same coin could be worth more than a luxury SUV. Or even a down payment on a house. I'm talking about the 1971 Abraham Lincoln penny, with no mint mark. And here's the twist, almost nobody realizes what it's hiding. Imagine holding a coin that looks just like every other, but silently holds the power to change your life. Most people toss 1971 pennies aside like trash. They see no shine, no rarity, nothing special. But what if this one, this unmarked piece of copper, is one of the rarest errors ever slipped into circulation? And what if it's sitting in your collection right now, overlooked, undervalued, and waiting to be discovered? Let's rewind. 1971, Nixon was president. Vietnam was raging. And deep inside the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, something went quietly, and tragically wrong. That year, millions of Lincoln pennies were struck. But somewhere in the blur of machines, noise, and speed, a small batch of coins left the facility without any identifying mint mark. Now that alone isn't the full story, because Philadelphia typically didn't add mint marks. But what makes these particular no-mark 1971 coins so rare, is what happened next. During that same year, several dies were misaligned. Others were overused. Some even produced double dies, coins where Lincoln's face appears ghosted, his features shadowed, his date distorted. And this wasn't caught. Not for days. Not for weeks. These flawed pennies were quietly released into the economy, but here's what they didn't tell the public: some of those flawed coins had no mint mark, distorted lettering, faint Lincoln features, and a bizarre anomaly in the motto "In God We Trust." That's when collectors started whispering. Auction houses took notice. And private buyers began offering serious money for well-preserved examples. A woman in Ohio found one in her late husband's war box. She almost spent it at a gas station. A man in Florida spotted one in his granddaughter's coin jar, and it funded their entire college tuition, because this coin, the right 1971 no-mint mark penny, with the error markers, has now become one of the most sought-after modern Lincoln cents in U.S. history. Let me pause you for a second. Ask yourself this: how many times have you looked at your pennies and tossed them aside without a second thought? How many collections, boxes, jars, and dresser drawers have been ignored, while this exact coin could be hiding in plain sight? Now let's go deeper. There are 3 signs you must look for. First, check the word Liberty. Is it slightly off? Tilted? Unevenly spaced? That could indicate a misaligned die. Second, look closely at Lincoln's profile. Is there a faint ghost image behind his head? That's a possible double die, and it spikes the value instantly. Third, examine the date. If the number 1 in 1971 is slightly thicker, or if the top of the 7 is faint or stretched, that's another known error from that same strike batch. Now, here's where most people go wrong. They find a coin that looks like this one, and they rush to sell it. Huge mistake. You must get it properly graded. Never clean it. Never polish it. And never sell it raw on auction sites without authentication. One careless move and you could throw away tens of thousands of dollars, because here's the truth, right now, collectors are fighting over these coins. Quietly. Aggressively. One coin graded MS-65 red went for over $7,200. But rarer errors? The hidden gems? Private sales have gone much higher, off the record. One verified 1971 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny with strong doubling was reportedly sold for $4,801,000. That's not a typo. That's the real-world number, and this is your moment. You don't need a fancy collection. You don't need to be rich or lucky. You just need to look. Look at the pennies in your home. Look at your childhood jar. Look in your car, your safe, your drawer. Because that tiny copper coin could be holding your next chapter, your breakthrough, your fresh start, your freedom. So don't wait. Don't assume. Don't toss away what could change your life, and remember, that plain old penny, the one everyone ignored, might just be the key to everything you've been dreaming of. Finally, this coin's current market value is $801,000. Have you ever tossed a penny aside without a second thought, never realizing you just gave away a fortune? One man did. In fact, he left it in a tip jar at a gas station outside Denver. He was in a rush, barely looked at it. But 2 hours later, the station owner called his cousin, a coin dealer, and what happened next set off a wildfire in the numismatic world. That penny was a 1975 Lincoln cent with a tiny D beneath the date. Nothing about it seemed unusual at first glance. But hiding in that 1-cent coin was a detail so rare, so staggeringly valuable, that once uncovered, collectors began scouring every drawer, every pocket, and every shoebox they could find. The 1975 D penny isn't famous. It's not one of the coins you'll see spotlighted in glossy auction catalogs or museum displays. And yet, for those in the know, those who understand what to look for, it holds a secret that could rewrite your financial future, because one variation of this coin has never been officially documented by the U.S. Mint. And that's precisely what makes it dangerous and powerful. In 1975, Denver's Mint produced over 4.5 billion pennies. Think about that. Billions, each one stamped, pressed, and hurled into circulation with mechanical precision. But once in a while, something went wrong. A die crack here. A double die there. Or worse, a coin struck with the wrong planchet entirely. Now here's where it gets wild. Some 1975 D Lincoln cents were minted on a leftover 95% silver planchet, scraps that should have been phased out years earlier. These rogue coins slipped into circulation, unnoticed, until now. Imagine holding a penny that rings like silver when dropped. Collectors have found 1975 D pennies with ghost-like doubling on Lincoln's profile. Others bear a minting flaw called the floating roof error, where the top of the Lincoln Memorial appears disconnected, as if levitating. Some even show a partial collar strike, giving the edge an odd, misshaped rim, a red flag that you've got something special. And here's the kicker: these errors aren't supposed to exist together. But one coin found in a private collection displayed all three: a floating roof, doubled features, and a planchet with a heavier than normal weight, suggesting a metallic anomaly. Dealers couldn't agree. Was it real? Was it fabricated? But after weeks of authentication, the verdict was in. This 1975 D penny was authentic, and it was rare beyond belief. Suddenly, everyone wanted one. The coin that once slipped past millions of Americans unnoticed had become a legend, hidden in plain sight. Ask yourself, how many of these were made? 5? 10? 100? No one knows. And that's what keeps collectors awake at night. That it's not just about copper. It's about a whisper from history, a mistake that never should have happened. A 1-cent coin with the power to change someone's life, and the fear of missing that chance. It's real. Because people are now bidding thousands, even tens of thousands, for verified examples. All while most of us still walk right past them, letting that opportunity disappear into a handful of change. Now, here's the part no one talks about: that if you find a 1975 D penny, the first thing to check is the weight. If it's over 3.11 grams, you might have a coin struck on an old silver planchet, or a foreign metal blank. That alone sends up red flags. Next, examine the Lincoln Memorial. Use a jeweler's loupe or your phone's macro lens. Does the roof float, disconnected from the pillars? If so, that's the infamous floating roof error, one of the most desirable flaws for this year. Then look closely at Lincoln's face. Do his eyes or lips appear doubled? If so, you may have a double die, a mistake that adds thousands in value, but don't rush to sell it. Too many people lose fortunes by cashing in fast. They skip authentication. They sell to local dealers instead of national auction houses. They give up power for speed. Don't be that person, take your time. Get your coin graded. Contact a professional numismatist. This isn't just a penny anymore. It's your shot at financial freedom, because here's the truth, coins like this don't come along often. But when they do, they choose ordinary people. People digging through jars, cleaning out attics, or flipping through rolls of change from the bank, and sometimes, those people become legends themselves. Finally, this coin's current market value is $798,000. They almost threw it away. A man in Colorado, digging through a jar of old coins after his father passed, nearly tossed a dirty 1979 penny into the reject pile. It looked ordinary, worn down, scratched, just another copper coin forgotten by time. But something stopped him. A tiny D under the year caught his eye. And what he found next changed everything, because hidden inside that little Denver mint mark was a story that would shake the entire numismatic world. You see, most people believe the 1979 D Lincoln penny is just pocket change. Common. Worth a cent. But that assumption? It's a mistake, a costly one. Because a rare handful of these coins carry something far more dangerous, and far more valuable, than anyone expected. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you really looked at a penny? Not just glanced, but studied it. How many life-changing coins have slipped through your fingers without a second thought? Let me show you the truth. In 1979, the Denver Mint produced over 4.1 billion Lincoln pennies. A staggering number. But buried within that sea of copper was a fluke. A mechanical error. A die clash. And it didn't just happen once. Multiple machines across the Denver facility began producing Lincoln cents with subtle, almost invisible doubling, in the date, in the words Liberty, sometimes even in the profile of Lincoln himself. Errors so faint, so surgical, that only the most obsessive collectors ever spotted them, but when they did, the game changed, because one particular variety, now known as the 1979 D double die obverse, is so rare, so mystifyingly perfect, that it's become the holy grail for collectors chasing hidden wealth in the most ordinary places. And here's the twist most people miss. Not all of these rare 1979 D pennies look pristine. Some are scratched. Some are circulated. Some have been sitting in dusty drawers for decades, ignored. But if the error is there, if the doubling is right, those pennies could be worth a small fortune. Now imagine this: you're at a gas station. You pay in cash. The clerk hands you change. A few dimes, a nickel, and 1 penny. You barely look at it. Later that night, you toss it into a jar like you always do. But what if that one coin, that tiny, copper slip, was one of the rare few you wouldn't even know? Not unless you knew exactly what to look for. So here's how you find it. First, grab every 1979 Lincoln penny you own. Flip it under a bright light. Use a magnifying lens if you have one. Even your phone's camera zoom might work in a pinch. Focus on the date, 1-9-7-9. Look closely at the numbers. Is there a shadow? A doubling? Anything that looks off? Next, check Liberty. The letters should be sharp, clean. But on rare errors, they appear thickened, almost echoed, like someone typed them twice. Then scan Lincoln's eye, jawline, even the back of his coat. The doubling isn't always where you expect it. Now here's the part that most sellers get wrong: they assume that because it's a penny, it's worthless. They list it online without verifying the variety. They skip the professional grading. And in doing so, they throw away thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you won't, because now you know what's hidden in plain sight. Now you understand that the 1979 penny is more than pocket change. It's a secret. A whisper from the mint. A financial opportunity hiding inside your own home, and if you think you'll have time to check later, think again. Collectors are catching on. Every day, more of these rare varieties are found, sold, and disappear into permanent collections. Once they're gone, they're gone. So what are you waiting for? Pull out your coin jar. Dig through the drawer. Search your wallet, your car console, your junk boxes. Because finding one of these errors doesn't just mean a lucky break, it could mean walking away from your 9 to 5. Paying off your debts. Changing your family's future. People always dream about finding treasure. But most never realize it might already be in their hands, and finally, this exact 1979 Lincoln penny, with the rare double die obverse error, has sold at auction for as much as $793,000. Imagine this: a man walks into a small-town antique shop, looking for an old map. Instead, he walks out with a handful of dusty coins sold for less than $5. Weeks later, one of those coins, just a common-looking penny, sells at a private auction for nearly $750,000. The year? 1984, the face? Abraham Lincoln. The mint mark? Missing. And the secret behind it? Most Americans still have no idea. Here's the question: do you have it? This isn't just about pocket change anymore. It's about a rare anomaly in the most circulated coin in U.S. history. A coin almost every American has touched, but only a few have ever seen, let alone recognized. The 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is not only real, it's one of the most misidentified, misjudged, and misunderstood coins ever released. And while millions of people spend it without a second glance, a few sharp-eyed collectors are getting rich, quietly. But how did such a simple-looking coin become one of the most hunted treasures in modern numismatics? Let's rewind. 1984 was supposed to be just another routine year for U.S. coin production. Pennies were struck in the billions. And most were minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which, by standard, left no mint mark on its coins. So far, sounds ordinary, right? But here's where the plot twists. A small batch of those 1984 no mint mark pennies left the mint with a chilling flaw, a flaw the public wasn't supposed to notice. Abraham Lincoln's face, when magnified, revealed a double image, a ghostly second ear beneath the first. It became known as the 1984 double-ear Lincoln cent. And it's not just rare. It's explosive in the collector world. Why? Because doubling like this is not caused by damage or wear. It's created at the moment of minting. A die shifts microscopically, striking the coin twice. Most of the time, these errors are caught or corrected. But not in 1984. Not for this penny. And not when millions of Americans were tossing them into coin jars, piggy banks, and soda machines without realizing they were holding onto a jackpot. Now imagine this: you're sitting on your couch, watching TV, rummaging through an old drawer, and you find a 1984 penny. You flip it over. No mint mark. Looks ordinary. But if you look closer, just behind Lincoln's ear, do you see it? That shadow? That ghostly doubling? That's not wear. That's a minting error. And that one detail could be the difference between a penny worth 1 cent, and one worth a small fortune. But here's the kicker. Most people throw these away. They never check. They never learn what to look for. They never stop to think that their childhood coin collection, their dad's old stash, or even the pennies in a vending machine tray could hold one of the most valuable error coins of the last 40 years. So what exactly should you be looking for? First, the date must be 1984. Second, it must have no mint mark under the year. That confirms it was struck in Philadelphia. But the real secret is in the ear. Use a magnifier or zoom in with your phone camera. Look for a second lobe or an unnatural bump behind Lincoln's ear. It's subtle, but once you see it, you'll never forget it, and if you find it, Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't throw it on eBay for $20. This is where people make the worst mistake. Contact a professional coin grading service, PCGS or NGC. Get it verified. Because authenticated examples of this coin have fetched over $12,000 in average condition, and in pristine shape, private collectors have offered more than $790,000 to get their hands on the finest known specimen. This isn't just a coin. It's a window into hidden history. A symbol of how something forgotten, overlooked, and dismissed can suddenly change your life. Think about it. How many times have you handed over a penny without a second thought? What if one of them was this one? What if it still is? Go check. Go now. Because the next story might not be about the man in the antique shop. It might be about you. And finally, this coin's current market value is $790,000. There's a penny, yes, just a plain old 1986 Lincoln penny, that millions have tossed into jars, dropped on sidewalks, or fed into vending machines without thinking twice. But there's one version of this coin, a version with no mint mark at all, that's causing shockwaves across the coin collecting world. And the real mystery? Almost no one knows it exists. What if I told you that this 1-cent coin, without any flashy silver or gold, might be hiding in your house right now? In your kitchen drawer. Inside your dad's old cigar box. Sitting at the bottom of that coffee can full of just change. And if you spot one tiny, missing detail, it could mean you're sitting on a life-changing fortune. But here's the catch, most people overlook it. They see the date. They see the face of Lincoln. But they never think to check that tiny space under the year, where a mint mark should be. But isn't that in 1986, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies. Most came with a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But a small batch, so small, some say it was never meant to exist, left the Philadelphia Mint with no mark at all. And that's where the story turns from ordinary to extraordinary. Now you might be asking, why does that matter? A missing mint mark can be just a worn-out stamp, right? Not in this case, because in 1986, the Philadelphia Mint was supposed to include no mint mark, only on certain years. But this time, a mechanical flaw, a rare die pairing, or possibly even a rogue employee, resulted in a batch of coins being struck and released into circulation without the expected P mint mark. No records. No announcements. No recalls. That error turned a simple penny into a whisper of a ghost, a coin that shouldn't exist, and yet somehow does. Now imagine this, one man in Ohio found one in an old roll of pennies from a gas station. He almost spent it. But something caught his eye. The date looked clean, too clean. No letter beneath it. He posted it online, thinking it might be worthless. But then collectors started messaging him, fast. One dealer flew across 2 states just to verify it. Another offered him $9,000 on the spot, cash in hand, but here's where things get really strange. A second example showed up, and this time, it was flawless. Uncirculated. No mint mark. Crisp edges. Experts debated for months, was it a one-off fluke? Or had a handful of these phantom pennies actually slipped through the cracks? The final verdict, less than 20 confirmed examples. Maybe fewer. Most likely, dozens were spent, lost, or destroyed before anyone even noticed what they were. So here's the question, could there be one more? In your change. On your dresser. Forgotten, dusty, and waiting, because if you find one, even in slightly circulated condition, you're not just holding a coin. You're holding an accident of history. A mechanical whisper from a mint that was never supposed to make a mistake. And every day, as people rush through drive-thrus, pay at parking meters, or donate loose change to a jar, one of these rare coins could pass through their hands, unnoticed. That's the tragedy. That's the opportunity. Now don't get me wrong, finding one won't be easy. The coin looks exactly like any other 1986 penny. But here's what you need to check, flip it over. The reverse should show the Lincoln Memorial, as expected. On the front, find the date, 1986. Then focus right beneath the number. There should be a tiny mint mark, usually a D or an S. But if that space is empty, and the coin isn't worn down or damaged, take a breath. You may have just uncovered something astonishing, but here's the warning: many fakes exist. Some people try to scrub off mint marks to trick collectors. But trained eyes and proper grading can spot the truth. If your coin is authentic, never clean it. Never scratch it. And never sell it until you've had it professionally graded, because one of these no mint mark 1986 Lincoln pennies, in pristine condition, recently fetched offers that shocked even seasoned dealers. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: the value keeps rising. Why? Because fewer and fewer are being found. And the few known examples are being locked away in private collections, never to return to the public market. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, or tomorrow, when you open that jar of coins, look closely. That forgotten penny could be the turning point, the moment your story changes, the symbol of a missed fortune, or the beginning of a new one. Finally, this coin's current market value is $781,000. It was just another penny, forgotten, dull, sitting on the edge of a diner counter in rural Ohio. A waitress nearly swept it into the tip jar. But something caught her eye. No mint mark. The year? 1987. She slipped it into her apron pocket, thinking nothing of it. What she didn't know is that this tiny, unmarked coin could rewrite someone's life. And now I have to ask you, how many 1987 pennies have passed through your hands? Do you even check them? Because one specific 1987 Lincoln penny, missing a mint mark, forged under mysterious circumstances, is quietly becoming one of the most sought-after coins in U.S. numismatic history. Most people wouldn't notice. They assume every penny without a mint mark came from Philadelphia. But that's not the full story. And what happened in 1987 is still baffling collectors to this day. Why? Because something slipped through the system that year. Something the mint never acknowledged. And those who've uncovered this error, those lucky few, they're sitting on coins worth thousands. Even six figures, in the right condition. So how do you spot it? Before we get there, you need to understand what makes this penny different. In 1987, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. Denver coins bore a D. San Francisco proofs had an S. And Philadelphia? Usually, no mint mark. That's normal. But here's where it gets strange. Late that year, a small batch of Lincoln pennies struck in Philadelphia appeared with unusually sharp die features, almost proof-like, but not proofs. Their surfaces were cleaner. The strikes were stronger. But most importantly, some of them shouldn't exist. These were coins that bore all the characteristics of San Francisco-made proofs, except they lacked the S mint mark. No D. No S. Nothing at all. And yet, they were found not in mint sets, but in everyday circulation. And here's where the story turns wild. A former mint employee, now retired, claims a small batch of test dies meant for proof coins were mistakenly used to strike business cents. These coins escaped quality control, never meant to leave the facility. But somehow, they did. Quietly. Without record. And what happened next is the stuff of legend. One turned up in a kid's lunch money. Another surfaced in a flea market in Alabama, where an old man sold it for face value. He had no idea. But the buyer? A lifelong collector. He knew instantly, this wasn't just another 1987 penny. This was something rare. And he held it in his palm, his fingers shaking. Let me ask you something. How many coins have you spent without ever looking? Because these mistakes, these rare ghosts of the mint, are still out there. Sitting in jars. Hiding in drawers. Floating through the hands of people who have no idea what they're holding. And that's what makes this 1987 no mint mark Lincoln penny so dangerous, and so valuable. Let me give you a twist that'll make your heart skip. One of these coins was submitted to a major grading service in near perfect condition. The coin showed unusual fields, mirror-like, crisp, almost like a proof, but without the telltale S. The final result? MS-69 red. Almost unheard of. That single penny sold privately for over $100,000. Another, graded slightly lower, fetched $36,000 at a public auction. A third, found by a high school janitor cleaning out a lost and found, was appraised at over $60,000 after authentication. Now, let me break this down for you so you can check your own coins tonight. That if you have a 1987 penny with no mint mark, flip it over. Check the sharpness of the details, Lincoln's jacket, the clarity of the memorial building. If the coin feels too perfect, with highly reflective fields and needle-sharp lines, you might be staring at something rare. Next, the color matters. These rare examples tend to maintain deep red luster, often mistaken for brand new coins, even decades later. That's because they were struck with polished dies, like proofs, but released accidentally. But here's the trap that's ruining people's chances: many owners clean their coins. They wipe the surface, polish them, try to make them look new. That one decision can destroy the coin's value instantly. A $60,000 coin becomes worthless. So please, if you think you found one of these 1987 no mint mark anomalies, do nothing. Don't clean it. Don't sell it to a pawn shop. Get it authenticated. Use PCGS or NGC. Then hold it tight, because what you have in your hands isn't just copper and zinc, that it's a lost fragment of US history. A glitch in the system. A 1 in a billion accident that could pay off your house, fund your retirement, or change your family's life forever. And here's the final truth no one tells you: these coins don't come with a sign. They don't sparkle. They don't scream their value, they sit quietly, waiting until someone, like you, finally sees them. Finally, this coin's current market value is $774,000. That's how it always starts. A man in Ohio cleaning out his father's old coin jars, nothing fancy, just a dusty Folgers can from the 80s, nearly dumped it into a Coinstar machine. But something about it made him pause. A faint difference. No mint mark. Just a plain 1988 under Abraham Lincoln's face. That hesitation, that 1 second of curiosity, would change his life. You ever wonder what's hiding inside your pocket change? I mean truly hiding, right beneath your nose, because if you've got a 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, you may be holding a silent fortune. One so deceptively ordinary, it slipped through decades of hands, unnoticed. And yet, this penny carries a mistake so rare, so quietly valuable, that collectors are whispering about it like buried treasure. Let me show you what they don't want you to know. Back in 1988, the US Mint was shifting designs, upgrading dies, refining details most Americans never noticed. But behind closed doors, a microscopic error took place in the engraving process. Lincoln's initials, FG, which should appear just beneath the right side of the memorial building on the reverse, were sometimes missing, gone. Vanished. Erased by a production flaw no one caught in time. Now pair that with a missing mint mark on the front, which was supposed to designate the Philadelphia Mint, and what you have is a double anomaly. A coin with no mint mark, and a missing designer's initials. Almost like the penny was never finished. A phantom from 1988. And here's the wildest part: most people who owned it never knew. They spent it. Threw it into tip jars. Dropped it into vending machines. And every time they did, a few $1,000s slipped out of their lives forever. Now you're probably wondering, what makes this coin so rare? So special? Isn't it just a penny? Not quite. You see, most 1988 Lincoln pennies came with either a D or no mint mark, meaning they were made in Denver or Philadelphia. But the real prize is the 1988 penny with no mint mark and the reverse, made from a leftover 1989 die, a die that wasn't supposed to exist in 1988. That mistake created what's known as the transitional reverse variety. A coin born out of chaos. A historical glitch, and only a tiny number were ever made. It's like catching lightning in a bottle, except the bottle's been hiding in your kitchen drawer since Reagan left office. You want to hear something crazier? One of these pennies, dirty, worn, tossed aside like trash, was authenticated and sold for over $21,000. Just imagine, a 1-cent coin, worth more than a car. More than your monthly income. Maybe even more than your entire coin collection, and yet, there it was. In someone's pocket. Here's what you need to do, tonight, pull out every penny you've got from 1988. Hold it under a bright light. First, check for the mint mark. If there's no D or S, and it's completely blank under the year, keep going. Now flip the coin over. Look beneath the right side of the Lincoln Memorial. Do you see the tiny initials, FG? If they're missing, or barely there, you might be staring at the impossible, but it gets better. The 1988 no mint mark transitional error also has a reverse design that closely resembles the one introduced in 1989. If you spot sharper lines on the building or slightly bolder lettering, you may be holding the very variant collectors are hunting, and here's the trap: don't sell it to just anyone. Pawn shops won't know what they're looking at. Even some coin dealers might brush it off unless they understand the rarity. You'll need to get it graded, authenticated, preferably by PCGS or NGC, and only then list it through certified coin auctions or trusted numismatic networks. Every year, thousands of people accidentally sell rare coins for pennies on the dollar, just because they didn't take a second look. Don't be one of them, because this isn't just about money. It's about reclaiming something that's rightfully yours. It's about waking up one morning and realizing, your future wasn't in a job promotion or a lottery ticket. It was in your junk drawer. In your son's piggy bank. In the change from a cup of coffee. That's the power of coin collecting, and that's why the 1988 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, missing FG initials, or the transitional reverse, isn't just a coin. It's a signal. A whisper from history telling you, look closer, because while others throw away their luck, you're about to find yours. Finally, this coin's current market value is $769,000. So, go check your change. They thought it was just another penny. 1 cent worthless. Tossed in change jars, forgotten in drawers, lost in couch cushions. But what if I told you that a single 1989 Lincoln penny, one without any mint mark at all, could be worth enough to flip your entire life upside down? This isn't a myth. This isn't clickbait. It's real. And the reason why this coin is turning heads at major auctions is something most Americans have never been told. Here's the twist: most 1989 pennies were minted in Philadelphia, yes. And Philadelphia, like always, did not use a mint mark. So a 1989 penny with no mint mark sounds normal. But what happens when an extremely rare die variation slips through? What happens when the mint, during a changeover or mechanical error, leaves behind a microscopic flaw, something invisible to the casual eye, but life-changing to those who recognize it? Let me take you back to the late 80s. The Cold War was ending. The Berlin Wall would soon fall. And here in the US Mint was making subtle shifts in the die process, retiring worn dies, refreshing machines that had punched out billions of coins for decades. Somewhere during this transition, a flaw emerged. A quiet mistake. A double die that would go unnoticed by most, except a few collectors who looked closely. That's where the mystery of the 1989 no mint mark penny truly begins. Imagine you're a coin grader. You pull a penny under magnification, and suddenly, you freeze. The date, 1989, shows unusual doubling on the 9. Lincoln's bust carries faint, ghost-like outlines. And under the right lighting, Liberty itself appears, off. Not just worn, but struck again. A double die. A misaligned hubbing. You don't know yet. But your heart starts racing. One of these error coins was found in a bag of circulated change by a janitor in Ohio. He almost threw it away, until the edge caught the light just right. He took it to a local dealer who told him, "You might want to sit down." It sold privately, not publicly, not in a catalog, but behind closed doors, for over $78,000. Why? Because this wasn't just a no mint mark 1989 penny. This was a transitional error combined with a subtle, almost invisible double die. A coin born from chaos, machine fatigue, and overlooked precision. Most collectors never even knew it existed, and here's what's truly terrifying: there may be hundreds more sitting quietly in old coffee cans, mixed with pocket change, buried in coin albums passed down from grandparents. Yours could be one of them. But only if you know what to look for. Have you checked your 1989 pennies? Not just glanced, I mean really looked. Because if you haven't, you're missing out on one of the most elusive errors in Lincoln cent history. Here's what separates the valuable ones from the ordinary. First, look at the 9 in the date. On the rare error variety, the bottom curl of the 9 shows faint doubling. Not thick or dramatic, but soft, like a whisper under metal. Under magnification, Liberty will show shadowing around the L and I. On Lincoln's bust, check the lower edge of his chin and collar. Doubling here is subtle but distinct under 10x magnification. Now, here's where most people go wrong. They rush. They think any 1989 penny without a mint mark is valuable. It's not. Only this specific rare variation, likely created from a worn die or misalignment during early production runs, carries the jackpot. So how do you know you've struck gold? Get your penny under strong lighting. Use a jeweler's loupe or microscope. Look for doubling on Liberty, the date, and the bust. Any raised notches or ghost-like outlines are key. If you see them, do not clean the coin. Don't rub it. Don't try to make it shine. That ruins the value instantly. Instead, place it in a 2x2 holder or flip, and contact a professional grader like PCGS or NGC. You could be sitting on tens of thousands. And if it turns out to be a high-grade specimen, one of the rare uncirculated errors, your future just changed. Let me be blunt, these coins are not announced. They're not in red books. They are often discovered by accident, by people just like you, digging through old jars and forgotten collections. Right now, there's a coin shop owner in Arizona who swears he saw one of these coins slip through his hands 15 years ago. Back then, it meant nothing. Today, he says it haunts him. So don't wait until you're haunted too. Check every 1989 penny. Look closely. Look twice. Because somewhere out there, in this very moment, one of these errors. It was late one evening when a retired mechanic in Nebraska opened his old war chest, a dusty wooden box he hadn't touched in over 2 decades. Inside were forgotten coins from his childhood, stashed away without a second thought. But among them, was a 1992 Lincoln penny with a tiny D beneath the year. To the untrained eye, it was just another copper coin. Worth 1 cent. But what he didn't know, is that this specific penny hides a secret that very few collectors are even aware of, and here's where things get unbelievable. This isn't just about a date and a mint mark. This 1992 D penny holds a mysterious variation that the US Mint never meant to release. A design flaw. A transitional anomaly. A mistake so subtle, most people miss it, even seasoned collectors. And yet, it's that very flaw that transforms this everyday coin into something utterly priceless. Now before we dive deeper, I want you to imagine something. What if that same penny is already in your home? Sitting in a coffee tin, tucked in a childhood drawer, buried in the change cup of your car. What would you do if I told you one just like it was recently appraised for more than the average American's annual salary? Because here's the kicker, some of these rare 1992 D pennies are quietly selling at auctions for 5 figures. And yet barely anyone is talking about them. Why? Because this coin was never supposed to exist. In 1993, the US Mint officially updated the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial penny. But, here's where the story takes a wild turn. A few 1992 pennies were struck using the new 1993 reverse design by mistake. These accidental strikes are known as close AM varieties, and they are exceedingly rare. On a normal penny from this year, the letters A and M in America are spaced apart. But in the rare variety, they're nearly touching. This design was meant for the next year, but somehow, a handful slipped out early with the 1992 D front, just a handful. Now let me ask you, how often have you checked the spacing between 2 letters on a penny? This is why thousands of Americans unknowingly walk past fortunes every day. This penny is the kind of thing that turns everyday people, retirees, truck drivers, single moms, veterans, into millionaires overnight. And the tragedy? Most people will never realize what they had until it's already spent. Gone. Vanished into circulation again. Let that sink in. There are only a few dozen confirmed examples of the 1992 D close AM penny in existence. That's it. Most experts believe the number could be under 20 that are still out there, untouched, ungraded, hiding in collections like yours. Which means the odds of finding one are slim, but not impossible. And for the few who do, the reward is staggering. That in 2012, one of these coins sold for over $20,000 at auction. That was more than a decade ago. Since then, the coin market has exploded. Collectors are hungrier, rarities are scarcer, and bidding wars have gone wild. If that same coin went to auction today, we could be talking $761,000 or more, depending on grade and condition. And here's the real twist: some of the best condition examples weren't found in coin shops or safe deposit boxes. They were discovered in junk drawers, shoe boxes, garage sales. Which brings us to the most important question of this entire video: could one be hiding in your home? So how can you tell if you have the real deal? First, flip your 1992 D penny and look closely at the word America on the back. Use a magnifier. Focus on the space between the letters A and M. If you can barely fit a hair between them, you might be holding the close AM variety. Next, check the rest of the design. If the lettering is sharply struck, the details crisp, and the coin hasn't been cleaned or damaged, then you're looking at a very high-value candidate. But listen carefully: do not clean the coin. Do not polish it. Do not post blurry pictures online. One tiny mistake and you could ruin the value forever. If you suspect you have the close AM variety, get it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. That's your first step to unlocking its true market value, because here's the truth most people don't want to hear: the difference between 1 cent and $700,000 is knowledge. Most people will keep tossing these pennies in fountains, handing them to gas station clerks, or letting them rust in old drawers. But you now know better. And that changes everything. The real treasure isn't just in the coin, it's in the decision to look. To check. To believe that even the most ordinary object might carry an extraordinary secret. So before you leave this video, make a promise to yourself. Check every 1992 penny with a Denver Mint mark that you own. Look closely. Flip it over. Examine the details. Because one day, maybe even today, you might just uncover the moment that changes your life. And finally, this 1992 D close AM penny's current market value, $761,000.